had the pleasure of also having Dr. Paula Ruffin with us at our Lansing Thought Leaders. And you guys are in for a treat. She's amazing, and she'll get you up out of your seats a couple times. And she is a 27-year veteran chiropractor and nutritionist, and she's going to share some great tips with us. So yeah. Thank you, Paula. Do you want the microphone, or do you want
I think what we'll do, I can tend to have a pretty loud voice. So if I'm not projecting, I'll grab the microphone, but so you guys can just let me know. You guys hear me okay back there? Okay. Yeah, I've never really had much of an issue projecting, but if you need me to, I can certainly grab the mic. You guys hear me over there okay? Perfect. Okay. And if at any point you're like, we can't hear you, and make sure I hit my video button here. Yeah, we're rolling. Okay, perfect. Okay, well, welcome. Oh my gosh, last week was a white knuckler going to the event. Today, complete 180. Wasn't it beautiful coming in here today? Yes. Oh my gosh, so we're going to talk about what that sunshine does for us and how it improves our mood. But before I get started, I always like to get a show of hands, how many people are feeling the winter blues at this point? Pretty much everybody. Now, how many people think that there's really not much you can do about the winter blues? It's just something we have to go through. Anybody feel like we don't have much control over that? No? Okay, so we've got some optimists in here. That's good. All right. Because what tends to happen, and this is running a little slow, so but here's typically, I saw this picture and I was like, yeah, it's kind of what we start feeling like. We're a little, we're just not feeling creative. Our brains can't focus. We have some brain fog. We're trying to be productive. And my gosh, we got to knock those cobwebs out of our brain to get to where we want. Well, in order to figure out how to get through these winter blues, we have to understand how our bodies work. I always like to let you know the why of what I'm teaching, because I feel like it connects you better. And especially when you understand how your body works, you can go, oh, yeah, that makes total sense now. So have we all heard of circadian rhythms? Everybody heard of circadian rhythm? This is like your body's clock. And it's controlled, so it's your sleep-wake cycle. It's controlled by light. It's controlled by physical movement, your food, your stress. So you have a lot of control over what happens with your circadian rhythm. And this is really what we need to be mindful of, what we're doing through the winter. Because what happens is, in the winter time, because it gets dark earlier, our hormones shift differently. And I'm going to show you what happens a little bit later. But our hormones shift, and we have to really respect that. But what happens is, we end up doing this. We don't respect the fact that our bodies want that downtime. And so we go working into the night, exposing ourselves to all the blue light from all of our tablets, our phones, our computers, our TVs, and all it does is just empty our tank. So anybody feeling like an empty tank these days? So here's what I want you to think of. I want you to anchor your thoughts to this image, because as we go through this, if you start feeling that level of exhaustion and brain fog and your sleep isn't working the way you would like to, I want you to think about this tank and say, oh, my tank is empty. I've got to fill my tank. How can I fill my tank? So today is going to be all about learning how to fill your tank. We good with that? Okay, perfect. So this is the blues. I just like to call it the blahs because I feel like we just remember that word a little bit better. But this is what people call seasonal affective disorder. It can also be linked to many other mood disorders. It's even linked to bipolar and anxiety and depression. So for the people who already struggle with those types of things, you have to pay even more attention to what we're talking about. But then for those of us who are just like, we're just the humans trying to navigate life, these blahs can come at us just as easily. So when we have the blahs or the blues or seasonal affective disorder, we can feel depressed every day. We feel hopeless, worthless. We can't focus. There's that focus and brain fog. Our energy is just like, we don't want to get up out of bed in the morning. You know, those mornings when it's like 4 degrees and you're like, I got to go to work, or I want to go to the gym, and you're just like, you want to pull the covers over your head, and we just are not motivated. But one of the biggest things that happens through this time is we get an increased appetite. How many people get more sugar cravings wanting those comfort foods through the winter. Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's okay to admit it because we're going to talk about how to fight against it. But even bears and nature know that it's time to slow down. So this is my message to you. Give yourself some grace. You don't have to drive yourself into the ground through the winter. Your body is not meant for that. You have to be able to slow down, fill your tank, and then give yourself that grace and allow your body to do what it needs to do through the winter, which is rest and reset. And then come springtime, the days are getting longer, we can start to do more activities, and then you'll start to notice that energy will come up. But when your tank is empty, you can't fight through it. You got to just be like the bear and say, I'm just going to rest today. So I like putting things into buckets because I feel like we can remember these a little bit better. Who was here? Who came to Lansing last week? Anybody here that was in Lansing? Okay. So I did buckets last week. They were a little bit different, but again, I think you're able to have a recall a little bit better. So what I want you to understand about these buckets, first of all, take a good look at them. We've got light exposure, nourishment, movement, and sleep. You're going to rank these right now, just in your head, or you can put it on a piece of paper, what you think you're really good at and what you think you need work on. And if it looks like one scribbly line all the way through them, that's okay too, because a lot of people have different pieces of this. But we're going to go through the buckets, and by the end of this, I want you to then think, what am I going to work on first? Which bucket is my priority? We agree to that? Yes? Okay, great. So we talk about light exposure. Sunlight, critical. And the reason is because sunlight actually improves our dopamine, our serotonin. It helps our brains to function. It makes us happy. And the problem is, which is a whole nother talk, in fact, each bucket is a whole talk on its own, so I'm scratching the surface for you of each one. But sunlight is so important, and what do we do in the summertime? We cover up, we stay out of the sun is bad, the sun is dangerous. We can't live without sunlight. We need sunlight, and we need sunlight to be able to produce the hormones that we need to keep our bodies healthy. In fact, vitamin D is actually a hormone, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. And that is one of the most critical components that we're not getting from sunlight. So don't be afraid of the sun. Now, we can't get the sun now, so we'll talk about how we're going to improve our vitamin D levels and our happy hormones. But light exposure, when we don't have proper light exposure, it affects our mood, it affects our sleep, it affects our ability to think clearly. Eyes, we get the light through our eyes, which helps us either to function well or not function well. Your eyes are, we get in the car, first thing we do is put our sunglasses on. I got in the car and I drove here today and I left my sunglasses off because I want those light rays to come in and turn on those neurotransmitters that make me happy, healthy, and energetic so that I could be on point to stand here and present to you today. It'll help you recover or not recover from jet lag. Shift workers really struggle with this. And of course, we're all trying to be productive, so we need better focus. Who would like better focus? Okay, every single hand should go up. Now, the opposite can happen here. So I'm talking about getting good light exposure, but because earlier when I said we drive ourselves into the night, we're exposed to all those screens, those can have the opposite effect and actually cause negativity on these things here. So things that you need to be doing at night, blue light blockers, get away from those screens at least an hour before you go to bed. Dim your lights at home, because when you dim the lights, now you're starting to allow the hormones for sleep to get built up into your system so you can have a better night's sleep. Who here struggles with sleep? Do we show of hands? We have a lot of people struggle with sleep. Sleep is one of the biggest things that I see in my practice that people struggle with. And so these are really simple techniques for you to be able to utilize. So there's things you can do through the winter. This is a light box, and it emits, it's similar to sunlight in the rays that it emits. It's not going to give you vitamin D production, but it actually will help to produce more dopamine and serotonin, your happy hormones. Red light therapy is incredibly beneficial. It helps with healing. It helps with immune function. It can help with skin issues, help with the brain. And full spectrum lighting. We use full spectrum lighting to grow plants. So why wouldn't we use full spectrum lighting for us? you know, we get into these, I don't know what these are, but like ultraviolet lights, and those are just like, oh my God, they just zap your energy. Anybody feel that at the end of the day? You're like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. And it's because the ultraviolet lights have just zapped you. So you could get full spectrum bulbs. This is a sunlight lamp. So the sunlight lamp is great because you turn it on and it'll slowly start to come up, mimics sunlight, so it wakes you naturally, which is way better than having an alarm clock wake you in the middle of a dream cycle, and then you wake up exhausted, right? You feel that? The last picture over there, open up your shades. I go into people's houses and they keep their shades closed all year long. And I'm like, open the shades, get some sunlight. Do not live in a cave, right? She's like, yes, yes, yes. Just open the shades. And again, while we can't get the vitamin D production, if the sun is shining, I mean, this alone, everybody came in, they're like, oh my God, the happiness that I heard, the comments coming in, the sunlight is powerful. So even though you're not going to build that vitamin D production, what it does for your mental awareness is like, it's off the charts. So, okay, so we're going to go into nourishment. Now, nourishment I could talk about for hours, days. So again, scratching the surface today. And then this. Because it's winter, we have more cravings. We're not really paying attention to our health because our bodies are telling us to do something different. We want these comfort foods. I have 3 rules that my mom taught me when I was 8 years old and forced me to read food labels. No artificial sweeteners, flavors, or colors. You want to protect your brain and your nervous system? Those are the 3 rules you should follow, which means none of this should be entering your body. Your body is far more valuable. This is like putting water in your gas tank. So remember, we need to fill our tank. We need to fill it with good food. We need to fill it with good light. And so this would be one of those things. You're going to fill your tank, get rid of the other stuff. And by nature of, I'm going to start with this slide over here, by nature of having a protein-forward diet, you start to, all that other stuff starts to filter out to the wayside. So it's kind of like, stopping eating something. Well, if you start eating something else that's healthy for you, it's a lot easier to stop eating the things that aren't good for you. Does that make sense? So protein, great for the brain and the nervous system. Again, we're trying to protect our brains through this winter time. High omega fats, so fish, cold water salmon, cold deep water fish, wild caught sources. Stay away from your farm raised. And then small fish, sardine, anchovies, mackerel. The small fish have less opportunity to bioaccumulate any toxins in the waters, and so they're going to be a lot healthier for you. I probably say this to my patients 1,000,000 times a day. Now, I don't see 1,000,000, okay, but I know it's exaggerating. But when your feet hit the ground in the morning, grab yourself a glass of water. Before you even have coffee, get yourself some water, 12 ounces, chug it down. It gets everything moving. So it actually will help to start clearing your body out. It helps to improve digestion. It actually improves weight loss. And again, we're all so inflamed because of our diets and the lifestyle that we're leading that this will help to dump that inflammation. So chronic pain, chronic inflammation, autoimmune issues, digestive issues, you have got to be drinking water. Can we all agree to drink a little more water tomorrow? Perfect. Okay. Now, key nutrients. Vitamin D is the key nutrient. I mentioned that earlier. We all need to have more vitamin D. If you've had any blood work done, on your labs, it'll say a range. And that range will say, I think it's like 30 to 55 or 30 to 60, something like that, on those lab ranges. That is way too low. And I'll have patients come in, they're like, oh, my vitamin D numbers are fine. And I'm like, tell me what fine is. That's not a number. It's 35. No, that's why you still have gut issues. That's why you still have anxiety. That's why you still have depression. That's why you can't digest your food properly. That's why your hormones are all over the map. That's why you're sick all the time. That's why you can't heal. There are so many things that vitamin D does for us, including manage each and every other hormone in our body, that we have got to pay attention to this. So if you know your vitamin D number, I want that number up over 75. The higher your vitamin D number, they've done studies on this. If your vitamin D is over 75, it works better than a flu shot. Flu shots have aluminum and all kinds of other garbage in it, and you don't want to put that in your body. If your vitamin D number is over 75, your risk of COVID is like 0. So get that vitamin D number up. If there's one thing you could do, really focus on that. Omega-3 fatty acids, again, anti-inflammatory, incredibly protective to the brain, to the nervous system. And of course, you're going to notice each and every one of these today is protective to the brain and nervous system. The brain and the nervous system are the very first thing to form in utero. That is no mistake, bless you. That is no mistake. It has to control and direct everything else that happens in your body. So we need to fuel our bodies and give it the building blocks that it needs to actually do what it's supposed to do for us. Magnesium improves sleep, causes us to relax a little bit better. My patients who have really tight muscles, I immediately put them on magnesium because it'll help to soften the muscles. Tight, tense muscles, that is nutritional and mineral deficiency. And then our B vitamins, excellent for brain health. We can only get B12, which is one of the most critical components for brain health, from animal proteins. So the whole vegan conversation, we don't have time for that, but just understand that we need to make sure that we are taking care of our brain, our nervous system through these good, healthy nutrients. Movement. Okay. Moving through it. We have flexibility, strength, and mobility. Flexibility is the ability to stretch a muscle. Strength helps take that muscle, make it stronger. And then mobility is the ability to move that muscle through its range of motion while using strength. And I'll show you an example of that in a minute. But you're all going to stand up for me. Kim said we're getting up today. So I'm going to show you, this is actually my favorite stretch because it will, it checks all the boxes. It's going to stretch your front body out. It stretches the arms, the neck. It actually brings more energy and more blood flow to the mid-back because we're all doing this all day long, right? Keyboards, it doesn't really matter. Like people who work on machinery, everything is forward. So we have to open our bodies up. So you're going to take your hands, and I'm just going to go like this for a second. You're going to grab a hold of your thumb, but down here, and then try to straighten your arms. And then slowly, if you guys can see me, roll your shoulders back. So you're trying to push your hands down and roll your shoulders back. You guys feel that? Now just gently look up at the ceiling, and that'll get a nice stretch in the front. And you should feel, you could do this throughout the day. It is so energizing. And again, we're trying to get those muscles in the back of our body. We're trying to wake those up, get more blood flow in there, because they get really tight the more forward we're sitting, okay? You guys like that stretch? Feels amazing, right? Everybody get a couple clicks and pops when they did that too? Yeah. Okay, go ahead and sit down. Actually, no, stay up. Sorry. Okay, so strength. Leg strength is one of the key components of longevity. So you need to be able to do a half squat, and that will help us test what your leg strength is. And again, think of getting older. Slips, trips, falls, strength, walking, mobility. So if you have a chair, you can use this. If not, you can just use the air. And all we're going to do, either hands straight out or on your hips, and you're going to pretend you're sitting back in a chair. So your bum comes down, and you just come straight up. Okay, I'll pick those kneecaps up here in a minute, right? Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Now, this will energize the legs, because when the legs are sitting too much, the blood gets stagnant. You don't get blood flow. Imagine if you did this 5 times an hour for the next 30 days during your work period. Can we do this? We set an alarm, and everybody stand up during the workday. Okay, 5 squats. Okay, you can go ahead and sit down. That's one of my favorites. But again, it's a marker of longevity, so we need to make sure we're taking care of ourselves there. Okay, I just want to show mobility. This is my mom, 70 years old. Okay, I know a lot of 30-year-olds who can't do that. But she taught me all these principles. I used to exercise with her to Jack LaLanne. And this beautiful picture of her, she's admiring my sister's flowers in her backyard of her home in the Pacific Palisades. Thank God the house is still standing, with fresh picked lemons in a martini from the backyard. So that's just a little ode to my mother. May she rest in peace. And if she can do it, everybody else can do it. All right, so sleep. We have to address sleep. It's one of the most key components that we're missing. If you can do the other 3 things, you can start to improve your sleep. And then the things that we can do with our sleep is improve our brain health, improve our mood, improve our gut health, healing and repair. If you are not sleeping, you are not healing. So you have to get your sleep. Probably 75% of the room, the hands went up with sleep. So pay attention to sleep. Also, just because something is common doesn't make it normal. People will say to me, oh, I've never been a good sleeper. That's not a reason. That means you probably have hormonal issues. You probably have struggles with your gut. You probably have struggles with your brain. You probably have an inability to heal and repair your body. So let's pay attention to that and work on improving that sleep. If we do all the other things in the bucket, we can actually really make a dent here. And boy, those sound great, right? Wouldn't you love a little more creativity through the day? Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, so how much time do I have left, Kim? 5 minutes, perfect, okay. Okay, I was gonna do something else, but I think we'll just go right here. So when it comes to sleep, again, looking at the other buckets, what can you implement? And then this is my favorite exercise every single night, and it's called the brain dump exercise. So who gets brain chatter when they go to lay down? Yeah, we cannot turn our brains off. Okay, first of all, magnesium helps with that. And doing this exercise. Because what we need to do is give our brains permission to turn off. And so you just dump everything out of your brain. Open up a journal and just, preferably not open up your laptop. I prefer that we stay away from the lights. So just get a journal and just write. Just dump it all out onto your brain or onto your paper. Dump it all out for the next day. What are you thinking about the next day that you have to get done? Who do you need to call? What didn't you finish? What has to go on the list for next week? Dan Sullivan, if anybody knows who Dan Sullivan is, he's a really famous business coach. And he says, I do 3 things a day, 3 important things a day. If we can chunk it down to that, then we can stop this whole crazy hamster wheel in our brain. But this is going to be one of your key components. Always, always, I say, end the day with gratitude. So write something in there that you're grateful for the day. I made it safely to the event last week without flying into the ditch. The sun is shining today. And then put something on there for gratitude the next day. Gratitude is actually very healing for your brain, and it's very calming. So we're trying to move our brains into a state of healing and calm. And simply by using some really positive words, bookending it before we go to bed that night. So again, right before you go to sleep, knowing what you're going to have when you wake up in the morning. Okay, so those are our buckets. Now you can re-rate the buckets. What are you really good at? What are you not really good at? And with these buckets, if you like anything more, you can reach out to me, because like I said, we can go into detail on many of these topics. Each one on its own could be its own keynote or conversation. So I do have videos on my YouTube channel. I have a really active YouTube channel that I've answered just about all of these questions. So you can follow me there, and I'll show you where. This is, if you'd like a download of this document, you can scan that QR code, and I'm going to give it to you right over here again. So you can scan that QR code at the top for the download, and down at the bottom, you can contact me there. And then let me know how it goes with your buckets. All right, any questions? Yes, ma'am.
How else can we get vitamin D other than sunlight? Are there foods? Are there...
Yeah, so foods. So again, you can get it from the fatty fish. You can get it from mushrooms. You can get it from egg yolks. The problem is we can't eat enough. So I don't think I mentioned it. So I want you on at least 5,000 units a day. You'll never get that much from food. And so we have to, because 80% of the population is depleted in vitamin D anyway, so you should be supplementing year-round. Oh, and people who are lighter skin, you guys are really good sun and vitamin D absorbers. I'm Lebanese. I could be out in the sun for hours, tan like crazy, and I still wouldn't be able to absorb as much vitamin D as you might be able to. So, okay. Yes, ma'am.
Can you suggest, I know magnesium vitamins, there's so many out there, so many different
Yes. So the question is, great question. The question is, what type of magnesium? Tight, tense muscles is magnesium bisglycinate. Brain would be magnesium threonate. So there's different forms out there. The one that makes you poop is magnesium citrate. So if you're trying to take magnesium for tight, tense muscles or brain health, you don't want to take citrate, or citrate, people call it. And if you take it at night, it can be very beneficial for nighttime sleep and to help your body heal to the next day. So, anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I read something a long time ago, and I don't remember the source, but something about the, you know how we all wake up at 3 a.m. and we're stressing about things, can't get to sleep, but there's something specific that basically we're wired to do that, and that's just going to happen. Don't feel bad about it, but is that the case?
That's not the case. In fact, I was going to go into that, but again, that's a whole nother topic. But real quick, that's a cortisol burst in the middle of the night because your adrenal glands, which gives you energy, are so stressed out. And so that was part of the conversation last week was getting your body to rest and relax. And so again, some of these things that I talked about will help you to rest and relax. But that cortisol burst in the middle of the night, definitely a stress problem and a hormonal problem. It could be. It is preventable, 100%. And I've helped so many people stop that. We have to retrain your adrenal glands, basically, through dietary, lifestyle, and supplementation. Yep. You are not supposed to wake up at 2 a.m. like that. Yeah. And it happens more to women in menopause. Yay, us. Okay. Any other questions? Awesome. All right. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions.
Woo! Right? Awesome. Yes, I hope that you'll follow Dr. Paula Ruffin